And I know your LinkedIn is full of it, and probably many of the books published on Amazon already are too. Just content generated by some of those language generation tools. Are stories becoming worse because we just use AI these days? And have we maybe already seen the last great writer?
Oh, no, no way. No, I think I know what you're saying. And AI stories by themselves are, to quote my 13-year-old son, they are mid at best.
Mm.
So, like, they're painfully average, like all of these stories, because they're taking all of human knowledge and thought and understanding, and generally in this one-shot process that I described before, just
Yeah.
matching the next word and so forth. Certain models like Claude Sonnet 3.5 does a decent job at it, but it's like you're reading a novel written by a ninth grader or something like that. Like, no, it's not really the craft that you would expect to see. They could do a pretty good job writing a press release. AI for almost 10
Mhm.
years now has been taking sports scores and converting those into articles about what happened in the game, and can do a pretty good job with that. When there is like a very standard formula, it can do well with that. The true creativity that you would have in a fiction story where there's many possible outcomes and all of these different threads and so forth as part of that, it's difficult. It was extremely difficult for an AI to do that. I've actually been somewhat surprised at how slowly it has progressed in storytelling. uh,
Mhm.
so since 2022, I have, as you mentioned, under the AI pen name of Alex Irons, been publishing these books on Amazon, and they ain't good. These are not good books that we're putting out there. They're 100% AI written, and I disclose it. I give all the money to charity. I always like to preface with that because I don't want to take money from actual authors. Um, but like these stories, um, they're getting slightly better, but it's just marginally. There's so much more work that needs to be done. Where it does add the value, though, this is like even myself as a writer see this in brainstorming, in giving ideas, in being a thought partner, in all of these things. Whew, it's amazing what it can do. I was working on a book recently, and I used the new ChatGPT audio feature, which is very human like. I was walking around a lake by me for 30 minutes, an hour, a couple different sessions I had. And I just said, hey, I want you to be my brainstorming partner on this. This is the idea. It's very science based. I'm asking you science questions. I want you to ask questions back to me. And we were going back and forth. I did this for an hour. And at the end, I was like, okay, can you take this and just summarize everything we discussed? Like, can you give me an outline of what I just described here? And it did that. It was like I effectively had an assistant in my ear that could type infinitely fast, and could look up data almost just as fast as well and respond back and do that and give me an output at the end of that. And like those types of tools for authors are going to be hugely beneficial.
Mhm.
Um, I do think just AI generating stories, even if it does generate to the level of humans, here's the reality. I think we are attracted to humans, and what the things humans can do. And even when machines can do better than humans, we still like the story behind it, the human behind the machine that is doing this and so forth. We naturally gravitate to that. I always use this. There's a basketball player in America called Steph Curry. And anybody who follows basketball around, hometown favorite here. Love the guy. He's an amazing shooter. I can just do wondrous things with a basketball and get this big orange thing into this tiny hoop from far distances. We can build machines today that can do this better than Steph Curry.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
nobody is going to spend $500 to go sit for 3 hours in a big stadium to watch a bunch of robots do that. We do that because it's humans. We do it because we know the story and all this and the drama and all these things. And that's what matters. beyond all this. Can AI potentially do art better than a human? I think we're probably getting close to that. But it's not that really matters. It's the intent. It's all of these other things that go into that is really what makes it special. It really makes us, gravitate towards that. And it's the story behind that. There's a famous quote of an art appraiser, for lack of a better term. And somebody asked them, "Can you tell me how much this painting is worth?" And they said, "Yes, I can, as long as you tell me the story of who the artist is." And at first, the natural reaction was like, "Oh, that means art is fake and it doesn't really matter. And, you could just slop some paint up there." But, well, no, it actually is like what matters in all of these things is the story behind it. Whether you collected like football cards or baseball cards, these are all just pieces of cardboard with pictures on them. But we have deemed some of them to be worth thousands or even millions of dollars because of the story behind that. And this is getting to your point before. So we are a storytelling species. And even if AI can do things better than us, it doesn't mean that we are going to be out of a job, because we as humans have always moved towards the human side and all the foibles and all the shortcomings that come with that.
So what does Gen AI then actually do to human creativity? But because there's two groups, yeah, and maybe you remember, so back in the old days, when I don't know, when I was a kid and my parents were, driving, in the car together with me and other family members, drive to vacation, use a car, and then there was no navigation system. There was no GPS navigation whatsoever. So you had these huge paper-based maps on the lap, either of my mother or my father, it doesn't really matter. And then there was a very tedious process. You kind of, the evening before, you kind of get out a big, sheet of paper, get a pen, and you kind of write, the next exit. You want to make sure you're sequencing them in the correct order. You really are invested with your brain power in making sure just, the travel from city A to city B actually goes right. And then there was a point in time where you had these navigation systems. So my first one was a TomTom. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I had one of those
navigation
too.
system. Yeah, exactly. So, use that, and kind of the entire driving experience changed in then. And I never had any, bigger change in driving experience than before and after navigation system. Because what you do now is you can really, you can talk, you can have a phone call, whatever. And all that fancy stuff you have in the cars today, it's nice, but you're still driving and the navigation system kind of tells you go left or right. And with Gen AI for storytelling and also for creativity, are we experiencing a next navigation TomTom moment just now for creativity, so that others and machines are basically telling us what to do? Or is it a renaissance of creativity in a completely upskilled and boosted fashion we see?
I think that's a great example, Chris. And what I would actually say, let's continue that example out. So, for you and me growing up, we had maps. I even just had like pocket maps in the glove box and all this other stuff. Like there are maps everywhere in the car when I first started to drive, and then GPS comes along and maps are gone. But the thing for us to remember is maps were an innovation too. So if we go back far enough to our ancestors before they had access to maps, and like say they wanted to go hunting somewhere to another village or whatever it was that our ancestors needed to do, they were relying on all these other things for navigation. And if those people from several thousand years ago would look at us, even just like us of the 1980s, let's say, or 90s, who just had maps, they would say like, "Oh my gosh, you don't know how to wayfind using trees and all this other stuff." And we'd be like, "Well, no, you don't need to do that because we have maps." And this is just getting to ultimately the evolution of finding where you want to go, the evolution of art, the evolution of all of these things. Let's just take painting for example now. Like, I think there are very few painters today who will actually go and crush the berries and do all the things to actually create their own paints. Sure, they might do some mixing and some things like that. They're probably not skinning goats or anything like that, or whatever, sheep to pull out the canvas and to do that, to be able to do that. They just go to the store to do that. And these were all technological innovations that we had that kind of redefined what the craft was. So AI is going to be similar to that. And what is the future going to look like with AI? Now, maybe doing actual drawings might be a technique that is not as important in the future. And I know, I'm sure every artist that is listening or watching to this is cringing at that comment. But if the AIs can do these things well, maybe that isn't as important going forward or is valued going forward. Just like crushing paints and so forth to be able to create the right colors, or crushing berries and all the things to create the right colors would be doing the same thing. So in the future, then what does matter? What does matter? Like, what would a painter call themselves? And I think the world that we're moving towards is much more of one where we're all directors, if you will, to use a movie term, as the one who kind of can see everything and see exactly how they want things to be, and can use the machine, can use the tools, can use their own artistic skills, whatever it takes to do that, to convey exactly that image that they have in their head and somehow create that on a beautiful digital canvas that is going to resonate with people. That could be for a still piece of digital artwork, that could be for a movie, that could be for a song, whatever it might be. And I think in some ways, like, it will help people iterate faster. Like, again, just as all these other advancements have allowed artists to iterate much faster than they could have in the past. So it's changing. And change is scary because, like, there's a concept called the illusion of truth that I have. I'm sorry, no, it is the illusion of the past. It's the illusion of something. It will come to me as I'm describing it. I apologize. But what it is at a high level is, like, when we look back 10 years, we see ourselves as different people. When we look forward 10 years, we see ourselves as being the same as what we are today. And it doesn't matter if you ask a 20-year-old or a 60-year-old those same set of questions. Like, oh yeah, I was into dumb music back then. My clothes look stupid, whatever. No, everyone assumes that what you're wearing and dressing like and listening to music and all that stuff in 2024 will be exactly the same as what it will be in 2034. And you know what? It's not. It never has been at any other point in time. And what is personally hard for us is to realize that our jobs will change. Our jobs are a series of tasks that we have. And that these are things that are going to have step changes. And it's the illusion of history, which is what I'm thinking of. I don't know why I said truth or whatever that was. The illusion of history is the psychological concept I was describing there.
That works. That works perfectly.